What's up everyone, welcome back to another video. So today what we're going to be doing over the international break is having a look at some of your teams and rating them, thinking about some transfers that we could potentially make. So we've got some wildcard drafts, we've got some FPL teams that have one transfer, two transfers, injuries, a big variety, as well as having some of those wildcards that I know a lot of you are playing this week. So we will be looking at and discussing potential wildcard drafts as well in this video, which will hopefully give everyone who's watching something to think about, something to sort of get the ball rolling in terms of their own FPL teams. Thank you to everyone who submitted their team. As you can see, we had 125 entrants at the time I took that screenshot, and we've had more to come in after. So again, I've tried to pick a variety. We've tried to pick a few different teams because I can't, of course, get into all of these teams, but hopefully there are a few discussion topics that we can get into. So let's just dive straight in and start having a bit of a chat about some of these teams at the moment. So the first one we've got is from FPL Wilson. So of course, a big thank you to everyone who sent these in. So Wilson at the moment has 1.5 million in the bank and his wildcard is active. He didn't have any other comments to add, but this is a wildcard draft and he does have a fair bit of money to play with. So I think straight away the thing I see when I look at this team is there is a nice big at the back system. I'm a big fan of going big at the back whilst also having either Livramento or Duffy on the bench to sort of come in case there's that bit of rotation. Now there is no Trent in this team, which I think is probably the big concern. Now because of his price at 7.5 million, in theory you could go with that money in the bank from pretty much any of those defenders up to the likes of Trent, then I think that would be a really nice option. I can also see that this team has Tony on the bench. So again, when the fixtures turn, when there's potentially slightly more rotation, then Tony can come in for Rafinha, for Foden if he gets rotated, Zaha when their fixtures are not as good, or if one of those defenders does get rotated, which is possible with Champions League and the heavy schedule for both Chelsea and Manchester City, then Tony can come off the bench. However, the one thing I look at this team and I think it's really nice, I really like this team, so I'd probably already be giving it an 8 or 9 out of 10. I think it's a really strong wildcard draft. I would like to have Trent in my team. So also looking at some of the underlying stats, I think that Gallagher versus Zaha is a very close call. But given that Gallagher is so much cheaper than we get Zaha for, I would probably be going Zaha down to Gallagher. And that would allow you to bench Gallagher a lot if you want to play Tony, for example, and have Gallagher on the bench. And then you can also use that money to have more in the bank. You could do James up to Trent, for example, or Rudiger up to Trent. I think that's probably the way that I would go. Foden is a bit of a punt in this team. Now, Manchester City have looked great. Foden has also looked great in the minutes he's played. There is just that slight doubt in my mind about exactly how many minutes we think he's going to play, how often he's going to start. But from game week 8, there is a really nice run of fixtures for Manchester City, and he looked great against Liverpool in game week 7. So I don't blame you for going for that bit of a punt on Foden. And of course, you have a strong bench here to go and sub him out if he doesn't start. So I really like this team. I would like to do Zaha down to Gallagher and probably bring Trent in for one of those Chelsea defenders. But I really like this. Ramsdale is a great shout and goal. If Rafinha isn't available this week, of course, Tony can come off the bench. So I really like this, and we're going to start off with a really good 9 out of 10. Moving on to the second team. So the second team has no wildcard active, so maybe more in line with a lot of you are playing. 3.7 million in the bank, so a lot of money to play with, but just one free transfer to play with. So straight away, I look at this team and it's currently playing 4 at the back, but it's got Livramento on the bench. It's starting Conor Cody away at Wolves. So realistically, I think this team is set up probably to be a 3 at the back, rotating with a 4 at the back system. The midfield, I like Salah, I like Rafinha, and Mbeumo on the bench this week, but from game week 8, I love Mbeumo as a pick. Really nice fixtures for Brentford from next week, so very happy. He's definitely someone I'm looking to target as well. So Traore, Mopé in there, potentially could be bench for Mbeumo coming in the upcoming weeks. Ronaldo in there, again, is probably one that I'm not too keen on. So if I look at this team, the potential transfers that I'd be looking to make with that one free transfer would be potentially Ronaldo to Lukaku is something that I could think about doing with this team. Mopé upgrade to someone like Jimenez, to Tony, but you've also got Mbeumo in there, or Traore upgrade. Now, 3.7 million is a lot of money to have in the bank. A Ronaldo downgrade to Lukaku and then upgrading Traore to the likes of Heung-min Son from Tottenham, who has been performing really well in the past couple of weeks, is definitely something I would consider, so that this team would play a 3-4-3 formation each and every week. That's something that I would definitely consider. If you don't want to do that, I just think Ronaldo to Lukaku maybe next week, and Mbeumo can definitely come in for the likes of Traore. I do really like Saka. I do also really like Gallagher, who could come in for Traore as well. So I think prioritising Traore out would be the way I'd go. Saka and Gallagher, considering that you've already got Mbeumo in this team, would probably be the transfer that I would look to make. Not as good as the other team because the other team is on a wild card, but for a team that isn't on a wild card, I would again probably give this an 8.5 out of 10. Overall, considering the wild cards, let's give it an 8 out of 10. So it's still a really nice team, but there is definitely use for that free transfer this game week. So moving on to the third team we've got here. So this is sent in from FPL JJ, 1.5 million in the bank, one free transfer and no comments to have. So again, we look at it, some really nice big defensive options that I really like. Sarr in goal, Tierney in there is a bit of a differential. I like the Arsenal defence. I've got White in my team. I also think Ramsdale is a really nice pick as well. Livramento on the bench, again, great. Ramsey and Sissoko, a few differentials as cheap midfielders, but I really like them as well. Midfield of Saka, Rafinha, Salah, again, really like. Jimenez, Ronaldo, Antonio. Again, I really like this team. Maybe lacks a little bit of depth. For example, if Rafinha isn't going to be available to play this week, then Livramento is going to have to start at home to Leeds, or you're going to have to play Ramsey or Sissoko, and then you are at the bare bones already. So I think straight away, potentially there's room to upgrade the bench slightly this week, or do a little bit of something to try and improve the squad depth that we're seeing here. I think, again, Ronaldo to Lukaku is something that could be planned, but I don't necessarily think, looking at this team, it's where the transfer is necessarily needed. Shaw, again, to Cancelo, for example, is definitely something that I would look at doing. Manchester United haven't looked good defensively. Man City have looked great. Cancelo is more attacking threat so far than Shaw has. I really like Cancelo as an option and think that would make this defence of this team really great. Or you could, for example, go to Diaz if you want a more assured option. So that is definitely what I prioritise. However, if we also look at the bench, I do really like the idea. If you go for Ramsey or Sissoko upgraded to the likes of Gallagher, it means that having that really strong bench where there may be a slight rotation worry for someone like Cancelo, you then have a really strong bench to go with it. This team just feels, especially with the fixtures this week, slightly unbalanced. So I know that Crystal Palace are away at Arsenal this week, so it doesn't make it quite as good. So you could again go Mbeumo, but again, the fixture isn't that great. But I think upgrading the likes of Ramsey, spending a 1 million there to go Ramsey to Mbeumo, for example, and then potentially spending some money to go short to a Manchester City defender, whether it's Laporte if you can't afford the others, because you've then got a squad depth with Livramento and another midfielder in there. It doesn't matter if you have quite such a rotation-rich defender because they've got players to sub in. So I think this squad is really nice. One free transfer, I think you can definitely make a lot of headroom with it. Ronaldo is not my favourite striker at the moment, but I wouldn't worry about having him in your team now. Shaw potentially to a Manchester City option, as well as upgrading Ramsey or Sissoko to a Mbeumo type is definitely where I'd go. So the three transfers over the next couple of weeks of Shaw, Ronaldo, Ramsey to Cancelo, Mbeumo and Lukaku is definitely the transfers that I plan over the next couple of weeks. With that in mind, once those transfers have been made, this will get a 9.5 out of 10. It's very similar to a team I'd be very close to getting. At the moment, we'll give it an 8, but there are definitely transfers that can quickly boost that up the rankings. Moving on now to the fourth team of the video. We've got plenty of these to get through. So this is from Redditor YouTube on Twitter. Make sure you go and follow him out. I'm sure you all already are subscribed to his YouTube channel already. 0.1 million in the bank, and it's the second wildcard active team. So at the moment, Tomiyasu of Arsenal at 4.5 million in defence, and Mbeumo can rotate. Now, realistically, from next week, then it is clear that Mbeumo will be starting most weeks, with Tomiyasu's fixtures not being as great. But while he has Crystal Palace at home this week, then I think it's really nice. 0.1 million in the bank only, so not that much to play with, but let's just dive straight into the team. So straight away, Ramsdale in goal, I really like. The defence, Trent, Cancelo, Rudiger, really like, with that Arsenal cheap option with Livramento in there. Probably playing a 3 at the back, occasionally a 4 at the back system. A front 3 of the template, the really nice front 3 that I would go with probably if I was on my wild card. Antonio, Jimenez, Lukaku, I really like that. And then in midfield, we've got Salah, Rafinha, Foden and Mbeumo. So Foden, again, is probably not someone that I'd pick straight away. I want to see a little bit more from him, but I can see why people are going with him. They have a really nice run of fixtures over the next few games, and this team has a good, strong bench with Livramento, Tomiyasu, and then Brownhill last to rotate each and every week. So again, a little bit of squad depth. Having that bit of rotation aspect as well as a strong bench really helps, I think, coming into the upcoming weeks, while we're all trying to go Chelsea players, Man City players, Liverpool players. With the Champions League, there will be rotation. So if you are on a wild card, and as I've spoken with other teams, having a bit of that stronger bench is definitely where I would look to target. I really like this team. There's not much that I would look to change at the moment. go with it. Probably going to roll your free transfer after 1 week anyway. Tomiyasu is probably where I would go over Ben White. Brownhill, if you have the 0.1 to spare, you could upgrade him, but I think that's fine. He'll be sitting last on your bench every week. If Rafinha is out this week, you may be slightly weak on the bench, but you could play a 4-3-3 formation with Mbeumo if he's going to start, or Livramento. So just maybe bearing in mind what you're going to do with Rafinha this week, but I wouldn't book in a transfer so early on. And I really like this team, a wildcard. Again, a 9 out of 10. Very jealous of everyone playing their wildcard this week. This is a great team. Now we move on to Jack Stancer. So 0.4 million in the bank, 1 free transfer, and the wildcard was played last week. So it should be in a place where this team is pretty ready to go. It should be a pretty strong team. I look at it, Ramsdale in goal, double Man City defence. I really like Chelsea, Veltman, Trent in there, then a good midfield 3, up front 2, and then Gallagher and Tony on the bench. So again, as I've mentioned, and I won't badger on about it too much, but that squad depth that you've got here allows you to rotate whilst also covering for some of those defenders like Christensen, who occasionally may lose his place. However, with Thiago Silva going on international duty, it looks like Christensen will be fine to play in game week 8. So that defence should be fine this week. Again, Rafinha, it doesn't look like he's going to play in game week 8. But you've got Gallagher and you've got Tony on the bench here. Some really nice options. Saka is one I'm considering transferring in this week. Veltman I really like. You've still got Trent in there. You went with Trent on your wild card. I like that. You've still got it. A lot of players are considering selling Trent. I would keep him at the moment. I really like him as an option. You've gone Tony over Mbeumo. I think from next week, from game week 9, having either Tony or Mbeumo in your team is definitely where I'd go. Mbeumo slightly cheaper as a midfield, but Tony's probably going to score more goals this season out of the two of them, and he's on penalties as well. And then Gallagher in there as well. This team is great. If I really had to nitpick, I would want a better Chelsea defender than Christensen. This team won't be able to go Christensen to Reece James, unfortunately. 0.1 million off making that transfer, but I really like this. That would probably be the only thing I could change with this team. I like the midfield options. I like the forward line. No Jimenez, but you can't own them all. So I'm going to give this one a really strong 9.5 out of 10. It played the wildcard this week, so you would expect it to be strong. But keeping Trent, double Manchester City defence, I love that, and I really like this team. So we dive into, we've got some great teams in here, hopefully some key talking points. We go into the final team that we've got here, which is Mr. Gamil Hassan on Twitter. 0.1 million in the bank and 1 free transfer to make. Double West Ham is his big worry with having both Benrahma and Antonio, but we do have Mbeumo on the bench at the moment. So I look at this and think, Townsend's an interesting one. This team has 3 premiums whilst also having that sort of premium defence in there at the moment. Trent, Laporte, Christensen. So going with those Manchester City and Chelsea centre-backs, you've tried to go for a premium defence whilst also trying to save a little bit of money there. For me, Laporte and Christensen together is one too many. I'm quite happy to go with one of Laporte, one of Christensen. I think they'll play the majority of the time, but it is just a bit too much when you look, okay, Mbeumo can play every week. You're then Duffy and Brighton are coming into slightly more difficult fixtures. So I would have preferred it to be Rudiger in for Christensen, for example, or Laporte up to Diaz or Cancelo. Just slightly more nailed options in there as well. Benrahma, again, hasn't returned that much. He scored 1 goal in 4 games. Townsend's Everton's fixtures are okay. They've got some nice ones, some difficult ones. And Mbeumo on the bench, I do really like. The key areas that I would look to transfer here, triple premium up front. You've done okay to squash it in. I think it's probably fine. Although I don't love it as a tactic in this team, it's probably fine to do. So Benrahma downgrade to someone like Saka, for example, or Benrahma to Rafinha would probably be the way I'd look. It wouldn't free you up that much money, but Townsend then maybe, Townsend down to Gallagher, for example, or free up a little bit of money somewhere to do that second transfer in defence of Laporte or Christensen up to a more nailed defender in your team. Now, that does feel sideways, but I think it would pay off in the long run of Christensen to Reece James or something like that. I can't fault this team as it is. I just think there could be a few headaches to come down the line. Benrahma to Saka, Benrahma to the likes of Rafinha as well. Rafinha's out this week, so you can potentially keep him. Townsend, again, I don't necessarily think he'll continue to return at the level he has. there's just a few things in defense that worries me a little bit. So I'm going to give this squad an 8 out of 10. I do think it's nice. There are just a few things, as mentioned, with one free transfer and having no money in the bank, which means you probably need to do a downgrade in order to free up money to do that upgrade. But I do like it. 8 out of 10. Try and get maybe some money in the bank to upgrade one of your defenders, whether it's Duffy, whether it's Laporte, Christensen, or something like that. But having Mbeumo ready for those Brentford fixtures, I do really like. So those are the team reviews, but we have just spoken about a few important things here, and we'll just summarise on them. The first one is Manchester City. They've hit good form. They looked great in game week 7. Their defence looked great. Conceded 1 goal in the league before game week 7. I think double defence, at least single defence, is absolutely an essential to own at the moment. If you want to go for some of their attackers, Grealish, Foden would probably be the two I'd look to target. Jesus, once he's back for game week 9, another one that I think we could look at. This ties in a little bit to big at the back, so I like the Chelsea defence, the Liverpool defence in Trent, the Man City defence, the Arsenal defence are all really nice options for you to own. I really think they are the defenders that we should be looking to target at the moment. Cheap midfielders and rotating options. So there are a lot of really nice midfielders, but none that I'm confident will get returns each and every week. And at the moment, those sort of 7 to 9 million options are really not paying dividends. And to be honest, 7 up to 11, 11.5 million is not paying out unless you get Son. So having a few of those cheap options that you can rotate each and every week, like we got here, Smith Rowe, a great cheap option, Saka, Rafinha, Townsend, Gallagher, Mbeumo, really nice options, but I don't trust them every single week. So if you can start owning a few of them and rotate them when there's Champions League, there may be rest for some of these big at the back defenders that we're going on, so you can start to rotate them whilst also having a really strong bench. Is definitely the strategy I'm going to go, and it is definitely what I would recommend you all using your transfers on. So there are 6 teams rated, key talking points for your teams at the moment. I hope you have found it useful. If you have, please, as always, do consider liking and subscribing. 70% of people watching this video aren't subscribed to my channel, and if just on one video even half of those would decide to subscribe, then we would be up at 20,000 subscribers. So do consider subscribing to the channel if you have enjoyed. Of course, drop any questions you guys have in the comments down below. I will do my best to answer each and every one of them ahead of the game week 8 deadline, but each and every game week as well. So good luck in game week 8, but there'll be plenty more videos if you are interested between now and the deadline, and I will see you all, of course, very soon.